Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Cheltenham Borough Council's Licensing Committee, which is being held today, Wednesday the 6th of September 2023. My name's Councillor Dr David Willingham and I'm Chair of the committee. The meeting is being streamed live to YouTube and recorded for training purposes. If there are any breaks in the transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues are resolved. The recording of this meeting will be held on the Council's YouTube channel for 4 years, and if you speak in the meeting, then obviously you're consenting to having that being processed and held there. I would like to ask everybody to ensure that mobile phones are either off or at least on silent, and if you've got anything else that pings, dings or makes other noise, if you can put it on mute, that would be most helpful. There are no fire alarms planned for this evening, but if the fire alarm does sound, then please leave via one of the exits with the green signs and follow either the councillors or the officers from the building. Moving on, agenda item number 1 is apologies, and we have had apologies from councillors Harman and Boys. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Right, I am not seeing any. Agenda item 3 is public questions. There are none. Agenda item 4 is the minutes of the previous meetings, which includes miscellaneous and alcohol and gambling subcommittees. So the first one I need to just do shows of hands or check whether there are any issues. The first one are the minutes from the 1st of March, and I've got one correction on that, which is agenda item 5, which was the determination of a new Hackney Carriage driver's licence. It says that we revoked the licence, and I think that should be that we refused the licence on the grounds that we can't revoke a licence we haven't issued. Are there any other comments, and are you happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? Can I have a show of hands? Right, I'll sign those. And put them out the way so I don't scribble on them. The next set of minutes. Okay. I've got the 22nd of May. Are we happy that those were true and accurate record? I think that's myself and councillors Seacombe and Wheeler to indicate. Are we happy? Yeah. Right. I've then got the full licensing committee from the 7th of June. Again, are there any issues from members, or are we happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? Okay. Okay. The alcohol and gambling subcommittee from the 5th of July, which is myself and Councillor Chidley. Are we happy with those? I think we're the only two that were there, so we're the only two that can indicate. Are you happy? Good, right. And last but not least, the miscellaneous committee from the 9th of August, which is myself, Councillor Chidley, Councillor Sankey. Are we happy that those are a true and accurate record? I have an amendment. Want to use the microphone, please?
My name's missing from those minutes, and I was there.
With that, are we happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? Show of hands. Yep, good. Right. Right. Oh. My computer has gone to sleep, so let me just wake it up again. So agenda item 5 is a review of previous decisions, and I think we're going to skip over that and move straight on to agenda item 6, which is an application for street trading consent. So because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard of the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. We will ensure that the applicant and the applicant's representative are present if they have exercised their wish to attend. We'll also make sure that the objector or their representative are present as well. I will ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Members will get an opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. The applicant would get an opportunity to ask the officer questions if they were present. The objector will get an opportunity to ask any questions to the officer, and then the objector will be given the opportunity to speak. We ask objectors to limit this to no more than 10 minutes. If the applicant was present, they would be given an opportunity to present their case. The applicant's not present. There is no cross-examination. Members can ask the applicant questions. Members will debate the matter. The applicant, if they were present, would be given a final right of reply. It's possible that we would adjourn to formulate our reasons. I will then read the resolution and we will vote or provide our decision. So if I can ask the licensing officer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application is to place an A-board on the highway. The application was made by Mr. Dan Shooter, based at the chip shed on Montpellier Street. The hours are contained within the report, which all members can see. Members must be minded that the size of the A-board does not comply with Council's policy. A picture of the proposed structure is under Appendix A. The width of the footpath available does comply with Council policy. A location plan and proposed location is attached under Appendix B. The committee can approve the application because members are satisfied the location is suitable, or refuse the application because it does not comply with the provision of the street scene policy. There is no right of appeal for the applicant. That is the report. If any members have any questions, please ask.
Members, are there any questions? Councillor Seacombe.
What the officer has not mentioned is the fact that because the premises has on-street frontage, there is no necessary right to have an A-board either. I think members ought to be aware of that.
That is correct. Our policy states that to allow an A-board, the premise must be at a disadvantage. The premise does have street scene property. It does have glass frontage as well.
Councillor Pinniger.
It's not clear to me whether the size of the A-board is larger or smaller than the policy.
As per the report, it's actually larger than what our policy allows.
Any further questions? Okay. So if I can now ask Anne Lightfoot, firstly, do you have any questions for the officer based on what you've heard? And if not, if you've got your questions, please ask them. If not, it's your opportunity to address the committee. So there's a button in front of you, and hopefully there we go.
Yes, thank you. I don't think I have any questions for the officers, except that I have to say that I could come here on behalf of I come here on behalf of Cheltenham Access Forum, and also I'm a member of the Gloucestershire Sight Loss Council. We would oppose this A-Board application on the basis that it doesn't really fit in with the council's policies. As has been mentioned by Councillor Seacombe, it doesn't fit into the provision that it has neither, it's not either in the basement or on the first floor, and I think it's in a conservation area. It also has very good frontage, and it has access from both ends of the building, so that you can see it from either end of the building. And in fact, yesterday they had A-Board up at each end of the building when I passed by. I think that A-Boards are quite a dangerous thing for anyone with a visual impairment, for instance, because as somebody who's visually impaired, you tend to walk along an edge of a building or an edge of a marked pathway where there is tables and chairs. But unfortunately, A-Boards in Cheltenham do seem to have this habit of walking across the pathway, so you end up with them all over the place and probably not where they're designated to be, which is something that my colleagues on the Sight Loss Council have pointed out to the licensing officers on a few occasions. The National Association for People with Sight Loss is actually starting a new campaign next week, which is called something like Recover Our Streets, because they too are concerned about the types of furniture left in the streets. I think as a city in Cheltenham, we do seem to have been getting an awful lot of street furniture, and I'm not always sure that they're terribly necessary for as many A-Boards as we do have. They cause a hazard not only to people who can't see, but they're also a hazard to people who are in wheelchairs and pushing buggies, for instance, because you have to go quite carefully around them sometimes. I really don't quite understand why this A-Board is necessary, in that the fish and chip shop is placed very near several public houses and is on the street where lots of people walk by, and even on its side that isn't on the public street. The other side of it is also very near to a couple of hostelries, and you can see it from both sides of its building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any member questions for Anne? Yep. No? Okay. Right. Since the applicant isn't here, I will just, for the purpose of the minutes, just check with the officer that the applicant was invited to attend, so that we can at least minute that.
Yes, the applicant had an invite sent to them last week. I've also tried contacting them over the last 3 days, and I have sent an additional invite today via email without any response.
Thank you. Okay. So I think at this point we move to the member debate. Before I open the debate, I will remind you that it's important that you give due regard to the Council's policy, and that if you deviate from the policy, you give clear reasons for doing so. It's important that you only take into account material licensing considerations, and that your decisions are reasonable, proportionate and rational. Don't know whether anyone wants to open the debate. Oh, there's lots of hands. Isaac, there we go.
Thank you. I suppose a preamble, I did do an informal site visit on the way here by walking past it, more than anything. You know, as the objector says, I have concerns about accessibility for this. You know, it can be a bit narrow there, even if it's within the frame, it is concerning. The base of the A-board, it sticks out quite wide, and it's because it's not an A-board, it's one of the vertical ones on the thing. That's an easy tripping hazard as far as I can see. But more so, they have frontage on both sides. It's very visible to people coming from basically 4 different ways. And the size of it exceeding the maximum permitted dimensions, they're there for a reason. That seems to be there for a policy reason. If we deviate from that, it feels like setting a precedent and opening the floodgates for everyone to apply. Well, you let that person have this one, you know, that kind of thing. And I think mostly for accessibility, but also to keep street furniture to a minimum, I think we should stick to the policy for sizing of A-boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Seacombe, and then I think, was it Councillor Wheeler? So Councillor Seacombe, Diggory.
Thank you very much. Yes, I did a site visit as we came down to this meeting tonight. And an A-board's prime function is to advertise the business within. Well, it doesn't need advertising because you can smell the fish and chips being cooked, actually, at this time of night. And that presumably is why the applicant is not here, because he's busy working. So I would agree with what Councillor Telford has said, and about the A-board, it doesn't fit policy. But in addition to the A-board, there are 2 tables, tall, thin tables, presumably for people to lean on while they're consuming what they've just bought. And in addition to that, and I don't know whether, because they beautify the place slightly, there are 2 plants in pots, for which I assume they should actually have permission to put them out there. So there are 5 items on the pavement, adding further discomfort to those who are who find whose sight is impaired. So and they, of course, they do have a street frontage, and it's a window. So I mean, no one can doubt what's going on inside. So as you can probably tell from what I'm saying, I'm not in favour of granting the A-board application. And I would also suggest that when we follow this up, whether our officer does follow it up, you follow up the 2 tables and the 2 plants if you think that is a further thing to follow up.
Before I bring Councillor Wheeler in, if our licensing officer would like to just respond to that.
Thanks, Councillor. We are aware of the 2 tables and the 2 planters as well. There's actually a current application to actually place the tables and the planters on the highway. So that's a separate application they've made. So we are aware of that. Just to let members know as well, there is also an additional application in by the same company for an A-board to be placed on Montpellier Walk as well. So all these applications are in at the moment and they are under consultation.
Can I just follow that up with a question? Is Montpellier Walk a private road or a public road?
Montpellier Walk is private.
Yes, okay, that's fine.
And Montpellier Street, where this application is public.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler, Simon.
Yes, I'll keep it very brief because I think the nub of the argument's quite clear. We put a policy together to try and limit unnecessary street clutter for the precise reason the objector said. And as we've said, there is no overwhelming need for this sort of furniture, the A-board, etc. And so for that reason, I can't see how we could allow this to be placed there. So yes, I am very much against it.
Thank you. I will come in with I think my reasons are, I think we go with what's in the report, which is at 5.3, 5.4. So 5.3 is that it doesn't comply with policy because it has direct frontage and it's in a conservation area. 5.4 is it does not comply with the policy requirements in terms of size. And that's expanded on at 6.1 in the officer recommendation. I think a further reason is giving due regard to the Council's Section 149 Public Sector Equality Duty under the Equality Act 2010. We've heard from an objector who's raised concerns in relation to how this would affect the visually impaired, the mobility impaired community, which is a protected characteristic of disability, and also those with baby buggies and what have you, which I guess covers the protected characteristic of maternity to some extent. So that would be a third reason. I'm not sure that it's a reason, but it's possibly worth noting that if the applicant may have been busy, but they have been given several opportunities to attend, to make their case, and they have not done so. There is no compelling reasons being presented for deviating from the policy. So I think that gives us two extra points. I'm not sure about the validity of the person not attending, but if they've been invited and have chosen not to, we've got no reason to vary. We've not heard any reason to. Unless anybody's got anything extra to say or a dissenting view, and I'm looking at my colleagues, I would suggest that we move to the vote. Are we happy with that? I just need to check with licensing and legal. You are happy with the reasons? Okay. Now I need to find the... So the resolution we're going to vote on is 1.7.2, which is to refuse the application because it does not comply with the provisions of the street scene policy. So those in favour of refusing, please show. So that is unanimous. So the application has been refused, and I think you said that there's no right of appeal. Okay. That ends the session. We move to agenda item 7, which is to move into exempt session to sign the minutes. So I have to read this out. That in accordance with section 100A(4) Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining agenda items, as it is likely that in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, if members of the public are present, there will be disclosed to them exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 and 2, part 1, schedule 12A, Local Government Act 1972, namely paragraph 1, information relating to any individual, and paragraph 2, information which is likely to reveal the identity of an individual. Are members happy that we move into exempt session? Yeah. So for members of the public watching, I'm afraid we've got to go into exempt session. So thank you for watching.